God, please help us to set aside everything we think we know about ourselves, about our illness, about the 12 steps, about the pages we're going to read here together tonight from the big book. God, especially help us to set aside everything we think we know about you. Just be with us tonight. Open our minds and open our hearts so that we may have a brand new experience here together tonight with each other. Please help us to see the truth. Amen. So Chris, I am coming to ask to unmute you. We are picking up the reading on page 151, A Vision for You. And Chris, you should be able to unmute, and the show is yours. Thanks for being here, man.
Oh, my pleasure. Can everybody hear me? Can anybody? Okay, cool. Thumbs up. I apologize. I'm on my phone, guys. I just couldn't get the computer together. I have thousands of dollars worth of technology, and I'm down to my 5-year-old phone. All right, we're on page 151. First and foremost, my name is Chris Colella. I am a grateful, recovered alcoholic, among many other things. And we're going to start reading. Chapter 11, Vision for You, 151. For most normal folks, drinking means conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination. It means release from care, boredom, and worry. It is a joyous intimacy with friends and a feeling that life is good. So just to touch on that a little bit, all that's very true. However, for me, that was very, very short-lived. And once I experienced that, I never wanted to stop, ever, for a minute. I wanted to go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 8 days, just nonstop. But not so with us in those last days of heavy drinking. The old pleasures were gone. They were but memories. Never could we recapture the great moments of the past. There was an insistent yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and a heartbreaking obsession that some new miracle of control would enable us to do it. There was always one more attempt and one more failure, which sums up about 25 years in a row of my life. I constantly wanted to recapture the good old days, kind of like how Bill says it when Ebby comes, and so on and so forth, and the conviviality and just all the delusion. And I just wanted to be released from care, boredom, and worry every minute of every day. I wanted no cares. I wanted no worries. I wanted no boredom. I wanted to live in a constant state of recess is how I describe it. There was always one more attempt and always one more failure. The less people tolerated us, the more we withdrew from society, from life itself. As we became subjects of King Alcohol, shivering denizens of his mad realm, the chilling vapor that is loneliness settled down. It thickened, ever becoming blacker. Some of us sought out sordid places, hoping to find understanding, companionship, and approval. Momentarily we did. Then would come oblivion and the awful awakening to face the hideous 4 horsemen. Terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. Unhappy drinkers who read this page will understand. And as I read this, I mean, I know a lot of the people out there are reading it and following along, but man, was that hidden. And that is written about me. That is written about me. I mean, I live a great life nowadays, praise God, and I try to keep it pretty simple and I try to keep it pretty solid, but I remember those days. You know, it only takes me a couple minutes to read this book about myself, and man, I remember going to some sordid places just to try and be a little bit better or fit in so I don't have to compare myself, my drunken failure of a self, to the real world, which I had checked out of long, long, long ago. And I know that loneliness is just everywhere, all the time, by myself, with people, wherever it may be. Terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair. It's all I knew. That's all I knew. You might have slipped a little bit of fear and anger in there. Now and then a serious drinker, being dry at the moment, says, I don't miss it at all. I feel better, work better, having a better time. As ex-problem drinkers, we smile at such a sally. We know our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirits. He fools himself. Inwardly, he would give anything to take half a dozen drinks and get away with them. He will presently try the old game again, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. He cannot picture life without alcohol. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. Then he will know loneliness, which such a few do. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end. There they go again, writing my story. I gotta be honest, I remember those days. I really do. I'm not a first time winner. I'm just like Bill. Three shots. Third time's a charm. And I remember those days, talking all the jazz, not drinking, going to meetings, not a stitch of step work, no kind of God prayer, anything like that, or helping others. And I remember talking this same jazz, whistling in the dark like a Sally, if you will. And I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming sooner or later, but I was just hoping that if I hung out in the middle of the herd and I acted as if, and all those other good things, that one day it would catch on. And I was just waiting. I was like, when are these steps going to happen for me? And spoiler alert for those who haven't had that experience, it never came. I just had to blow my life up a couple times until I could really, really get back to it. But nowadays I can say, man, I am free. And praise God and the helpful people in this program that have helped me along my way. I rarely, if ever, can even remember thinking about a drink or anything. I try to stay in service. I try to stay busy. I try to stay in this book, following the directions to the best of my ability. And one of the phrases that I've been hanging on to lately, and it's been jumping out to me, is that we grab onto this thing like a life preserver and a drowning man. I'm like these guys. My legs are cut off. I'm not growing new ones. So I try and stay in this book. I try to stay following the treasure map that's in here. And most of the days it works out pretty good. Pretty good. We have shown how we got out from under. You say, yes, I am willing. But am I to be consigned to a life where I shall be stupid, boring, and glum, like some righteous people I see? I know I must get along without liquor, but how can I? Have you a sufficient substitute? Yes, there is a substitute, and it is vastly more than that. It is a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. There you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. Your imagination will be fired. Life will mean something at last. The most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. Thus we find the fellowship, and so will you. So there is a substitute. It's a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I misread that. And I didn't understand that. I thought that was just going to hang out with my buddies at AA. And it was going on. And, unfortunately, not that I was really about doing this work or the solution, even if I would have been presented with it properly. I didn't really want it. I want the easy way out. I wanted the half measures initially. And nowadays, the fellowship and the vision that I've been blessed with is, I got a very solid group of men and women who are about this for real. And, we constantly study it. We constantly try to live it. We constantly try to be about it. And it's a beautiful thing. It is such a beautiful thing. And it is a substitute. I don't have to worry about any of it. I mean, I could say I'm usually happy, joyous, and free until I get involved in my own little stuff, which occasionally does happen. But, it repeats here. There you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. And your imagination will be fired. So I was thinking about that because I did cheat a little bit and read a little bit earlier. Your imagination will be fired. So is it going to be fired like, it was my employee and I'm going to fire it and get rid of it? Or is it going to be fired up? I wasn't sure about that. But either way, I know there's an inward change. Life will mean something at last. And, I used to think that it meant money, property, and prestige. I really did. I thought that was successful. You know, being sober and all these other things seemed like a good idea, but I wanted cash and prizes. And man, I got them. But along with them came a time bomb, and it just blew up and splattered all over the place. And nowadays, you know, I can honestly say my life means way more than that. You know, I live rather humbly. I do pretty good with what I got, and I'm all about helping someone else. I'm all about, you know, trying to develop and maintain a fit spiritual condition, which is a constant conflict with my flesh and blood and my greed and my lust and my pride and my gluttony, and all my other fun things. But as I work through it with the help, grace of God, it works. And it just seems to work better when I try to get other guys involved and just try and do the right thing for the right reason. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. So how is this to come about, you say? Where am I to find these people? You're going to meet these new friends in your own community, near you. Alcoholics are dying helplessly like people in a sinking ship. If you live in a large place, there are hundreds, high and low, rich and poor. These are future fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. Among them, you will make lifelong friends. You will be bound to them with new and wonderful ties, for you will escape disaster together, and you will commence shoulder to shoulder your common journey. Then you will know what it means to give of yourself and that others may survive and rediscover life. You will learn the full meaning of love thy neighbor as thyself. And a selfish, self-centered user like myself, self-proclaimed that is, and I do have the credentials to prove it, very easily proved. So I live outside of Philadelphia, and there is a area around here, for those of you who don't know, known as Kensington. Please, whatever you do, don't Google it, because it is definitely one of the most sordid places on the earth. And occasionally I'll go down there for motivation. I actually am blessed to put a little meeting together on Sundays, and I did some step work with a gentleman after the meeting and a young lady, and I dropped them off. They live down there, and I'm telling you, it is exactly what this text is talking about. It is exactly that. It is the sinking ship. It is the saddest thing you've ever seen in your life. And out of it has come several people that I walk shoulder to shoulder with, and it is just the most amazing thing. Then you will know what it means to give of yourself, that others may survive and rediscover life. And I got to ask myself, what did the authors of this book mean when they wrote that sentence? Then you will know what it means to give of yourself, that others may survive and rediscover life. It may seem incredible that these men are to become happy, respected, and useful once more. How can they rise out of such misery, bad repute, and hopelessness? The practical answer is that since these things have happened among us, they can happen with you. Should you wish them above all else and be willing to make use of our experience, we are sure they will come. The practical answer is that since these things have happened among us, they can happen with you. Should you wish them above all else and be willing to make use of our experience, we are sure they will come. The age of miracles is still with us. Our own recovery proves that. A lot of hope in that one. A lot of hope in that one. If I follow the directions, these clear-cut directions that show me precisely what to do and how to do it. Our hope is that when this chip of a book is launched on the worldwide tide of alcoholism, defeated drinkers will seize upon it to follow its suggestions. Many, we are sure, will rise to their feet and march on. They will approach still other sick ones, and fellowships of Alcoholics Anonymous may spring up in each city and hamlet, havens for those who must find a way out. It's beautiful. That is some of the most beautiful literature I have read in quite a minute, and it is really, I'm feeling it today because I try to do this. I have a commitment, a personal commitment with a gentleman in one of our local organizations down here in a detox. He's been there and I go and visit him once a week, and he asked me to take him through this book, and I've been doing that. And I mean, occasionally I get a little grumbling after work, and I want to go do what I want to do, but I'll suit up and I'll show up. And when I leave there, man, I'm telling you, he is fired up, and he is doing it to the best of his ability, and he's really getting some things done as far as, as I'm concerned. And I leave there floating about 4 inches above the ground. And, he's been nipped. And it's just a beautiful thing. He's a defeated drinker. He seized upon this. He's followed its suggestions as I have. And, nothing is more of a bright spot of my day than to see somebody, hear somebody, or to be blessed to be involved with someone who really is about this. And, I experienced that yesterday, and, just reading it today it's touching. So it goes on to say, in the chapter, Working with Others, you gathered an idea of how we approach and aid others to health. Suppose now that through you, several families have adopted this way of life. Man, there's my purpose. There's my true purpose. I don't think it's $1 million in the bank or a Lamborghini or a swimsuit model or whatever it is, I might pick today, because that could change at any 10 minutes. It's right there. Suppose now that through you, several families have adopted this way of life. That's my goal. I believe that's my goal. You will want to know more of how to proceed from that point. Perhaps the best way of treating you to a glimpse of your future will be to describe the growth of the fellowship among us. Here's a brief account. Years ago in 1935, one of our members made a journey to a certain western city.
Chris, you're muted.
I'm not even kidding. I apologize. I just got
all good
from the gentleman I was just telling you about from the detox. One of our number made a journey to a certain western city. From a business standpoint, his trip came off badly. Had he been successful in his enterprise, he would have been set on his feet financially, which at the time seemed vitally important. I got to tell you, few things seem more vitally important when I'm in it than being financially on my feet. Because if finance and romance can't rock my boat, not too many other things can. But this venture wound up in a lawsuit and bogged down completely. Sounds like I may have been involved in that. The proceeding was shot through with much hard feeling and controversy. Bitterly discouraged, he found himself in a strange place, discredited and almost broke. Still physically weak and sober but a few months, he saw that his predicament was dangerous. He wanted so much to talk with someone, but whom? One dismal afternoon, he paced the hotel lobby, wondering how his bill was going to be paid. That's some Chris Colella alcoholic behavior right there. I'll go someplace, I'll bet it all on black or whatever, not even have return money home. I don't even have enough money to get home. Neither does Bill in this situation. Because he was counting his chickens before his eggs hatched. Because I'm delusional, I'm a dreamer, I want the brainstorms, we'll call it. And those are not for us. At one end of the room stood a glass-covered directory of local churches. Doesn't sound very appealing. Down the lobby, a door opened into an attractive bar. He could see the gay crowd inside. In there, he would find companionship and release. Unless he took some drinks, he might not have the courage to scrape an acquaintance and would have a lonely weekend. Of course, he couldn't drink. But why not sit hopefully at a table, a bottle of ginger ale before him? After all, had he not been sober 6 months now? So far, it seems like a great idea. Fear gripped him. He was on thin ice. Again, it was the old insidious insanity, that first drink. With a shiver, he turned away and walked down the lobby to the church directory. Music and gay chatter still floated to him from the bar. But what about his responsibilities, his family, and the men who would die because they would not know how to get well. Ah, yes, those other alcoholics. There must be many such in this town. He would phone a clergyman. His sanity returned, and he thanked God. Selecting a church at random from the directory, he stepped to a booth and lifted the receiver. I got to tell you, folks, I just, Bill's a better man than I. I don't know if I would be thinking about, at this point of the game, at this stage of the obsession that's about to set in, or life on life terms, whatever you want to call it, but I don't think that I would consider the others. I'm glad he did, and I hope I would too, but thank God I didn't have to. Because, a lot of times in my life, I wasn't thinking about everybody else. I wasn't thinking about the people relying on me. I wasn't thinking about other people at all. Thinking about me and what's in it for me. Thank God he wasn't. His call to the clergyman led him presently to a certain resident of the town, who, though formerly able and respected, was then nearing the nadir of alcoholic despair. It was the usual situation, and still is. Home in jeopardy, wife ill, children distracted, bills in arrears, and standing damaged. He had a desperate desire to stop, but saw no way out, for he had earnestly tried many avenues of escape. Painfully aware of being somehow abnormal, the man did not fully realize what it meant to be alcoholic, and how true it is, even in this day and age, and even with my own situation several times. Earnestly tried many avenues of escape, usually half-heartedly, painfully aware of being somehow abnormal, but still trying to beat the game one more time. Maybe if I do it a little different. I was big on the moral and philosophical convictions galore. When our friend related his experience, the man agreed that no amount of willpower he might muster could stop his drinking for long. A spiritual experience, he conceded, was absolutely necessary, but the price seemed high upon the basis suggested. He told how he lived in a constant worry about those who might find out about his alcoholism. He had, of course, the familiar alcoholic obsession that few knew of his drinking. Why, he argued, should he lose the remainder of his business, only to bring still more suffering to his family by foolishly admitting his plight to people for whom he had made his livelihood. He would do anything, he said, but that. Story of my life. I'll do anything but that. My dad used to say, kid, you're the great I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And I rarely did anything but continue my abnormal behavior. And I know how it is to live in constant worry about those who might find out about it. Being intrigued, however, he invited our friend to his home sometime later, and just as he thought he was getting control of his liquor situation, he went on roaring bender. For him, this was the spree that ended all sprees. He saw that he would have to face his problem squarely, that God might give him masterly. Not his sponsor, not 90 meetings in 90 days. I think it would have took you about 3 months to get, if not more, to get 90 meetings back in these days when there was none or one or two a week at its height. This refers to Bill's first visit with Dr. Bob. These men later became co-founders of AA. Story opens the next to this book. Dr. Bob's heads the story section. Okay. One morning, he took the bull by the horns and set out to tell those he feared what his troubles had been. He found himself surprisingly well received and learned that many knew of his drinking. So I believe that right there is when they're talking about Dr. Bob going out to do his amends, and the originator, one of the first recorded cases, it wasn't as bad as he thought it was going to be, as usual. Nor were mine, nor were many people's. I'm sure there has been a few, but as he saw, he grabbed the bull by the horns, which is not my strong suit. I want to, dance around it, get ready, take it easy, do a little bit at a time. I don't want to get better too quickly. Stepping into his car, he made the rounds of people he had hurt. He trembled as he went about, for this might mean ruin, particularly to a person in his line of business. Being a doctor and, going around town telling everybody what a Healy was, took a lot of guts. It really, really did. And, one of the things I just want to step back and I want to just touch on, one of the things in my own experience is that pain and that suffering and that desperation that is so instrumental to really, really spark my lazy, undisciplined self to get into this work and to ask God's help and to stay on track. Because, many a times the lack of those few things kept me an inch from death and suffering constantly and thinking there was no way out. At midnight, he came home exhausted, but very happy. He has not had a drink since. As we shall see, he now means a great deal to his community, and the major liabilities of 30 years of hard drinking have been repaired in 4. So they're talking about Dr. Bob and when he went to the, I believe it was the American Medical Society in Atlantic City, New Jersey, which coincidentally was where I started drinking again. I'm from New Jersey, and I was there on a holiday, if you will. And I remember tipping that bottle back on the beach and saying, I wonder how this is going to end up. And I'm telling you, folks, that was after almost 15 years of sobriety, if you will, and it did not end up cute at all. But it did get me to where I'm at now, and I wouldn't change the lick of it. So, but life is not easy for the two friends. Plenty of difficulties presented themselves. Both saw that they must keep spiritually active. There it is, guys. There it is, ladies. Plenty of difficulties presented themselves. Life was not easy for the two friends. I want everything easy. I think I am entitled to some type of monarchy from the world, and I'm not. I honestly should be under a jail somewhere or dead. And I really mean that. I know a lot of people say it, but I am telling you from the bottom of my heart, that is definitely my story. So it says right here, if I'll just take the time to read it and believe it, life isn't always going to be easy. Plenty of difficulties presented themselves. Both saw that they must keep spiritually active, and I got to ask myself, am I spiritually active? What, and not yesterday. I can't rest on my laurels. I can't say what I did yesterday. Oh, yesterday I was spiritually active. No, today, now, what did I do? What am I doing? One day they called up the head nurse of a local hospital. They explained their need and inquired if she had a first-class alcoholic prospect. She replied, yes, we have got a corker. He's just beaten up a couple of nurses, goes off his head completely when he's drinking, but he's a grand chap when he's sober, though he's been in there 8 times in the last 6 months. Understand, he was once a well-known lawyer in town, but just now we've got him strapped down tight. That's what this thing will do to me. I always, even when I was drunk and doing my thing, I always thought I wasn't that bad of a guy. But my rap sheet and my behavior and the damage and the tornado that is Chris does not sing the same song. And this booze, this behavior, this is what it'll do to you. I can be a well-respected lawyer or, whatever it is, but I'm a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And, I really, really bring that home when I bump into a couple people, which happens rarely, from what I like to call the good old bad days, because they barely recognize me. My roots grasp new soil. I'm not the same person. I mean, I have been lifted out of the scrap heap of life. Here was a prospect, all right, but by the description, none too promising. The use of spiritual principles in such cases was not so well understood as it is now. And I'd like to challenge that, challenge the people on this line who I know this book, and who I few of them I respect and I know, and I'm sure the rest of you aren't here by accident. But, What ways, shapes, and forms am I using spiritual principles in such cases nowadays? Are they understood any differently? Am I doing anything different? I don't know if spiritual principles really can do anything but transcend time and remain effective. But one of the friends said, put him in a private room, we'll be down. 2 days later, they let him sober up for about 2 days, maybe 2.5, 3 max. A future fellow of Alcoholics Anonymous stared glassily at the strangers beside his bed. Who are you fellows, and why this private room? I had always been in the ward before. Said one of the visitors, we're giving you a treatment for alcoholism. Hopelessness was written large on the man's face as he replied. Oh, but that's no use. Nothing would fix me. I'm a goner. The last 3 times I got drunk on the way home from here. I'm afraid to go out the door. I can't understand it. For an hour or two, for an hour, the 2 friends told him about their drinking experiences. Over and over he would say, that's me, I drink like that. There's clear-cut directions, folk. I got to get somebody if I'm going to work with them, and this is supposed to stick, and based on what I'm reading, correct me if I'm wrong, I got to find somebody who's hopeless. One thing to work with people and this and that. These guys are calling up mental institutions. They're going to police stations. They're going to, insane asylums. They're going to find people who are hopeless. And nowadays, I might not always bump into a prospect who's as hopeless or as desperate as may need be. And then it gives me more clear-cut directions. For an hour or two, 2 of them, not by themselves, 2 of them went and told them of how they drank and how they couldn't stop and their experiences and their insanity. And it just goes down and boil it down to the lowest terms. It takes one to know one. And I'll be able to win somebody's confidence if I do that. He says it right here. For an hour or two, the 2 friends told him about their drinking experience. Over and over, he would say, that's me, I drink like that. And you got to get him to buy in, and then you can strike. The man in the bed was told of the acute poisoning from which he suffered, how it deteriorates the body of the alcoholic and warps the mind. There was much talk about the mental state preceding the first drink. And that's where they set the hook. Because he wants to stop. And his problem is that first drink. It's only a Miller nip or whatever it is, whatever we say to ourselves, I only have one. Yes, that's me, said the sick man, the very image. You fellows know your stuff all right, but I don't see what good it'll do. You fellows are somebody. I was once, but I'm a nobody now. From what you tell me, I know more than ever I can't stop. At this, both the visitors burst into a laugh. Said the future fellow anonymous, damn little to laugh about that I can see. Drum roll, please. The 2 friends spoke of their spiritual experience and told him about the course of action they had carried out. There it is, folks. They found someone hopeless. They found someone desperate. They got them to buy in. They shared their strength, experience, and hope, and their pain, and their suffering, and their insanity. And then they told them, they didn't tell them about their 90 meetings in 90 days. They didn't tell them to just keep coming back. They told them about the spiritual experience. They told them about a course of action they carried out. He interrupted, I used to be strong for the church, but that won't fix it. I've prayed to God on hangover mornings and sworn that I'd never touch another drop, but by 9 o'clock I'd be boiled as an ale. Next day, they found the prospect more receptive. These guys didn't give up. They went right back the next day. They let him sit a little bit with some of that knowledge, with some of the experience, with what they just said. They let him stew on it. He wasn't going anywhere. He was in the hospital for however many time. Let's see what they did the next day. He said he'd been thinking it over. Maybe you're right, he said. God ought to be able to do anything. Then he added, he sure didn't do much for me when I was trying to fight this booze racket alone. And isn't that the truth? On the 3rd day, he rose again. Oh, nope, that's not it. Those of you just making sure you're paying attention. On the third day, the lawyer gave his life to the care and direction of his Creator. He said he was perfectly willing to do anything necessary. And that's abandonment for me, ladies and gentlemen. Am I doing that? Am I abandoning myself to God and His care and His direction? And am I perfectly willing to do anything necessary? A couple of you guys were talking before the meeting about the who, and I've recognized that in the back of the book for quite some time now. And you know how maybe a couple things got diluted or switched around or changed around, but you know, they say it transformed into how, and the honesty and open-mindedness and willingness, which is all indispensable and solid. But you know, what about the who? And who do they mean? As far as I'm concerned, they mean God. It's got to be God for me. Can't be a doorknob or a chair. Can't even be a group for more than a few days, because I usually pick a group of crazy people. His wife came, scarcely daring to be hopeful, though she thought she saw something different about her husband already. He had begun to have a spiritual experience. That afternoon, he put on his clothes and walked from the hospital a free man. That's how quick. That's how quick. It says 3 days, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe a half a day max. That afternoon, he put on his clothes and walked from the hospital a free man. He entered a political campaign, making speeches, frequenting men's gathering places of all sorts, often staying up all night. He lost the race by only a narrow margin, but he had found God, and in finding God, he had found himself, which, and I'm going to wrap this up and let you guys get at it a little bit. You know, what I read there is that if I'm in fit spiritual condition and if I've abandoned myself to God and I'm really trying to do this, now mind you, he hasn't had a lot of time to put it into action, but you know, God's either everything or he's not. And he devoted himself to it allegedly, and it seemed to have worked. And he went these places. And I'm not sure how you guys take it, but he frequented men's gathering places of all sorts. So I'm pretty sure there was some debauchery and drinking, and he was staying up all night. And I've been to a few places where they stay up all night, and it's not the most G-rated establishments. But he was able to do it. He had a purpose. He was running for this campaign, and it seems to have worked out pretty good. I'm going to finish this page out. This was in June 1935. He never drank again. He, too, has become a respected and useful member of his community. He has helped other men recover and is a power in the church for which he has long been absent. So you see, there were 3 alcoholics in that town who now felt they had to give to others what they had found or be sunk. Let me read that one more time. So you see, there were 3 alcoholics in that town who now felt they had to give to others what they had found or be sunk. It's what I have to do. I don't know how you interpret that, but I interpret it very, very literally. I have to give to others what I found, or else my ship is sunk. After several failures to find others, a 4th turned up. He came through an acquaintance who had heard the good news. He provided to be a devil-may-care young fellow whose parents could not make out whether he wanted to stop drinking or not. They were deeply religious people, much shocked by their son's refusal to have anything to do with the church. He suffered horribly from his sprees, but it seemed as if nothing would be done for him. He consented, however, to go to the hospital, where he occupied the very room recently vacated by the lawyer. What a coincidence that he wound up in the same room as the gentleman that we were talking about. But, you know, guys, that's a pretty powerful, ladies and gentlemen, that's a pretty powerful, couple pages that we read. And I hear a couple things in there. I hear God. I hear his care. I hear his direction. I hear devoting myself to it, helping other people. And I just can't deny it. Now, I'm not saying that I don't do that, because I do it. But I got to be in fit spiritual condition. I can't pour from an empty glass. And I got to keep on keeping on. It actually feels good. I enjoy it.
I could be called a fanatic, a big book thumper or whatever, but I know what's on the other side. I know what happens when it doesn't get done, because I have enjoyed a great life through God's grace in this work, in this book. And it works when you work it. It really, really does, or however you want to take that. Don't take it too literally. But my point I'm trying to get at is, if I stop living this life, I stop living this life. And guess what creeps back in? All the bad stuff. All that shivering darkness that they spoke of, and the loneliness, and slowly but slowly, with cunning, baffling, and powerful, it'll get me. And it starts something like, you know what, I don't really feel like it tonight. I'll go tomorrow. I'll go visit that guy tomorrow. I'll do this. It starts with being undisciplined for me. It starts with me, it starts with little things. The devil doesn't come at me with horns and a red cape and a bottle of vodka. He comes at me with a promotion at work and a stack of money and the free will to do whatever I want, and always looks like a good idea. I've never started a bad idea that I didn't think was good. I think I am a genius most of the time, until the ending of the story, and I'm crying in my soup. But anyway, in closing, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for letting me squawk about this big book, which I do love, and I do try to pass on to other people and other guys. Currently, I live right outside of Philadelphia. I'd like to personally invite any and all of you, if you're ever in the area on Sunday around 12 noon, we have a great meeting, big book breakdown, right behind Parks Casino in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. Come by anytime. We're there every week. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was great, man. So the meeting is now open. If anyone has a question for Chris or has something they would like to share, you can raise your hand in the participant screen, and I will come to call on you.
Don't be shy, boys. Come on.
I'll call on people if they don't raise their hands. So.
I think you should. I think you should.
Let's see. Richard, do you want to share anything tonight? Let's see.
Good evening. My name is Richard. I am an alcoholic.
Hey, Rich.
Thank you, Chris. And, you said a lot. One of the things that really hit home with me is about, I can't rest on my laurels today, my spiritual laurels today. This is something that's constant. My spiritual practice, because of the big book, sobriety, and the things that I do, is just asking God for help every day, many, many times a day, many times a day. And because I need all the help I can get. I'm so grateful that we have these Zoom meetings. I was one of the fortunate ones to start this about 8 months ago, and maybe missed a handful of them. And I get to know most of you and hear you share. And what I hear at this meeting is that it's always aligned with God. It's always aligned with our third step. Regardless of what the message or what the words are, the meta message is God could and would have solved. And I think that really kind of streams through the entire big book, and then it permeates us. And then we get to have this amazing life, as the big book talks about. We've been reborn. And today I can say I have been reborn. It does not mean I do not have challenges during the day, mental, physical, what have you. But I have been reborn because I don't react to life the way I used to react to life. So, Chris, thank you for setting a great tone for the meeting. And thank you for calling on me. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Richard. All right. Enid, I'm coming to unmute you now. or asked to unmute you, you might need to unmute yourself.
Got it.
There we go.
Well, I'm going to bring a scripture from the Bible into this only because it's so meaningful for all of us, but especially the newcomers. And it said they would seek God if they might grope for him and really find him, although, in fact, he is not far from each of us. For by him we have life and move and exist. I love the thought of being able to, for all of us, to be able to search for God. And this tells us he's not far from each one of us. All we have to do is ask.
Thank you so much, Enid. All right. Again, if anyone wants to share or has a question, you can raise your hand. And if we don't get any hands, I will continue to call on some lucky people.
I'd like to make a brief comment, if you don't mind.
Yes, please do. Yeah.
I just want to bring attention to how many times in the few pages that we wrote, spirituality, God, spiritual principles, which, in my humble opinion, in my area, in my experience, we gloss right over. We're all about the physical solution. We're all about the mental solution. The stronger my spiritual solution is, in conjunction with the two, they're all components, the better off I am. Plain and simple. And of course I have avoided it like the plague, you know. It says religious people. I used to be big on the church. I used to be strong on the church. I'm nothing now, you know. What about be quick to see where religious people are right and make use of what they have to offer? It said something about being boring and glum like the religious people. I hate to paraphrase it, guys. My book is all the way over there on the table. But, you know, these are the things that I gloss over because, you know, if I read them, I gotta be about it. I gotta start doing something about it. Can't just pretend it's not there. And I gotta ask myself some hard questions, and I gotta make myself do some things. You know, what am I doing spiritually? How's my spiritual program? How are a few religious ideas? And, you know, how's my program of action? Because back then, when they did it this way, guys, if I'm not mistaken, and please chime in, did they not have a 75, 85% success rate? And now, what do we got? 5, 10, if that? So why don't I do this precisely as it says? Why am I not trying to hone my spirituality day in and day out? I know it goes against my human nature, so on and so forth, but it works. It really does.
It does. It's the last thing I tried, and it's the first and only thing that has ever worked and continues to work. So, yeah.
Crazy.
All right, so we have a couple hands. Alexis, I'm coming to ask to unmute you first.
Hi, I'm Alexis, and I'm an addict alcoholic. Thank you, Chris. What a powerful and inspirational spiritual message. It reminded me that either God is everything or God is nothing. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you so much. I'm still in early recovery, but that is just, it was an awesome message. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alexis. Welcome. All right. Up next, I'm coming to ask to unmute C.
Yes, my name is Charles, and I am a recovered alcoholic. And the drinking problem, technically speaking, one day I was drinking, the next day I wasn't. And if I stayed with the program, moving forward, I don't have to pick up a drink again. But in my thinking mind, I'm still drinking or trying to stop drinking. I've already stopped, but my thinking is not my higher power, but I use it as my higher power, and that cuts me off from the will of God. I like the idea that we are not to use the human will to try to solve problems with it. We are to use the human will to be willing, having will, to align it with the infinite will of God and live our lives through abandonment from the infinite will of God, and at the same time be aware that my thinking is centered around my body and my mind and my social, sex, and security instincts. And if I did a third step, that's none of my business anymore. I be about the business of God, and God will be about the business of what I need in order to effectively carry out his will. The program works, but I have to work it out of the we, because the I that I come in the room with is an I that I was programmed and conditioned and made to believe that that's who I am. I'm not. My true self is the self that God wills me to be, and opposed to the one that I'm trying to be, relying on my finite self to define that, or the finite selves of others to define that. The whole purpose of me being here is to be free from that self so I can be whom God has willed me to be by me being willing to be that. And it's demonstrated not based on my thinking or my memory of the big book, but it's demonstrated that intuitively I would know how to handle situations that used to baffle and puzzle me in my thinking. But being free from the thinking, I receive a vertical download as life is happening, meaning and implying I'm living in the present moment through the grace of God. And that's freedom from the finite self. Thanks for allowing me to share that.
Thank you, Charles. All right, so now I have several hands, and I doubt we'll be able to get to everyone, but anyone who I don't get to, just hang out after the meeting. We can hang out and chat and talk. So I am coming to Jeffrey first.
Hey, good evening, Fire and Line. I'm Jeff. I'm a real corker of an alcoholic. Thanks for bringing me in, Cap. And Chris, it was awesome to hear you tonight. And you were making reference about the timeline when they went to Bill Dotson in the hospital in the 3 days where they explained to him step one, and he had an experience, and then he had that third step conversion. And it's quite telling when we go into the first personal adventures before and after in Bill's story, Dr. Bob's Nightmare. He continued to use that format. On page 263, Dr. Bob used 6 steps because that was his experience. Mm-hmm. The surrender, the conversion, the restitution, and
complete deflation was the first one, which is very important.
Right. Deflation. Right.
Complete deflation.
Right. Thanks for clarifying that. Great to hear you tonight. If it was a baseball game, I'd be standing at home plate to give you a high five because you hit it out of the park.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay. All right. Connie is up next.
Okay. Hi. I'm Connie. I'm an alcoholic. And Chris, thank you so much. Thank you for putting it in simple terms and just to relate. You related. It was so easily relatable when you spoke it. You weren't condemning, you weren't, about, because it's not about, it says in the book, put it in simple terms to the alcoholic, because sometimes they can't understand, when people are so, don't talk in human terms. And, we need to realize that we're coming out of something, and we need to relate to the people who we're talking to, who we're learning from. So I just thank you for that, because I really related to you, and I just I got a lot out, and you did a wonderful job. So thank you so much.
Thank God, guys, not me. Thank God.
All right, John B., you have 1 minute.
No pressure.
My name is John. I'm a recovering alcoholic. Good job, Chris. Thank you guys. Yeah, I wanted to, piggyback off of the last person. I'm really, really enjoying these big book breakdowns, because, anybody can read this book, but when you have somebody on the other side explaining word by word from experience from this book, and just explaining things, and, it's very important to find, your spirituality in this process. And I thank God that this time around I am focusing on the spirituality part, and I'm finding myself being free from so many things that kept me sick for a long, long time. And I just want to say thank you, and good job, Chris, and thank you for sending me this link. I'll be here tomorrow.
Thanks, John. All right, guys, let's thank Chris again for being here tonight. Thanks so much, man. All right, a few things before we wrap up. Please consider donating to your local intergroup or GSO. Also, I put the link in the chat to make donations directly to New York. Again, I'll stick around to ask for new people after we pray out, so we'll keep the meeting room open for about 5 to 10 minutes if anyone would like to hang out. We will end our meeting with a reading from page 102 from our book. Your job now is to be at the place where you may be of maximum helpfulness to others. So never hesitate to go anywhere if you can be helpful. You should not hesitate to visit the most sordid spot on earth on such an errand. Keep on the firing line of life with these motives, and God will keep you unharmed. And Chris, I would love for you to take us out with the prayer of your choice, please.
Mute me. Okay, there I go. Prayer of my choice. Oh, I got a good one. Let me pull it up. I got it right here. I'm not that sharp. I got to cheat a little bit. Give me a minute, guys. It'll only take a second. I got it right here. And I think this one just goes with our whole theme tonight. And you tell me what you think. All right? Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred I may bring love, that where there is wrong I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord I may bring harmony, that where there is error I may bring truth, that where there is doubt I may bring faith, that where there is despair I may bring hope, that where there are shadows I may bring light, that where there is sadness I may bring joy. Lord God, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted,